Okay, well, I am ready.
Okay, so this meeting is being conducted in accordance with the provisions of RSA 91A and emergency order number 12 issued by the governor of the state of New Hampshire. It's being conducted virtually due to the COVID-19 pandemic. It is not practical for members of the committee to meet in person, nor is it practical for the general public to meet with the committee due to the COVID-19 virus. So therefore, it is being conducted virtually by Microsoft Teams or by telephone by the links provided. If you're participating by phone, dial *6 and you can speak when the chairperson recognizes you and allows you to do so.
All right, we will call the meeting to order and start off with the acceptance of the, of the minutes. I guess I'd like to have a roll call first to know who's here. And Chip, we'll start with you, your photos there.
Yeah, Chip Brown is here.
Who's next?
Clifton Bealow's here.
Dan Nash is here.
Karen Leo Hill is here.
Okay.
David Newlove is here.
Tracy
Hutchins is here.
and Steve Whitman is here. Sean.
I am here. Sean Mulholland is here.
I think everybody. Did everybody speak in?
I thought I saw Andy Key is here as well.
Andy Key is here, yep.
Can't tell.
Okay, minutes.
All right, we got to accept the acceptance of the minutes for July 22nd, 2020. Anybody would like to move that, please?
Dan Nash, I'll make a motion.
Thank you. Second from Cliff. Is that right?
This is
I'll second that.
Okay, any discussion?
one slight correction. Kevin Purcell's name, 2 L's on his last name.
Thank you. All right. All in favor, we're going to call off this in order. And let's go through the same order we did last time, please. Or just speak up.
Yes, Chip Brown.
Yes, Clifton Bealow.
Yes, Dan Nash.
Yes, David Newlove.
Yes, Bill Dunn.
Yes, Karen Leo Hill.
Yes, Andy Key.
Yes, Steve Whitman.
I am non-voting.
Okay. And Sean is not voting, so that carries. Somebody's very busy. We will now move to number 3, item number 3, which is to discuss the status of the 20 Spencer Street redevelopment project. Sean,
Okay, so the council has authorized me to enter into an agreement with Braveman Company to redevelop 20 Spencer Street. So that will be signed very shortly, as soon as the addendums get added to that. So that project will be moving forward. The next steps for that will be, from Braveman's perspective, will be submission of to the planning board for site plan approval and all the issues that go along with that. So that'll kick off that process from his perspective. From the city's perspective, we have a number of things we have to do. One, we have a pile of soil that has to be removed. It has PCB in it, and that's going to be sent out to Vermont to be disposed of. It's a small pile. And we also have some additional testing we have to do to meet the requirements by the DES and now EPA. EPA is now involved because of the PCP issue. And that triggers their involvement. So there's some additional test wells that have to be dug and sampling that has to be done to meet their requirements. So that's moving forward at its pace, which is good. The other part that we have going on right now is the engineering work will be finalized. The final design should be done no later than December by Beta Engineering for the reconstruction of Spencer Street itself, as well as all the utilities underneath. We'll be increasing the size of the storm drain system, and that area we're going to reconstruct. That's part of a citywide initiative to make sure we have additional capacity in the future to deal with storm drain, stormwater issues. We're replacing the sewer line. We're not replacing the water line. It seems to be adequate the way it is. The project also includes the paving of the rail trail from the intersection of Spencer Street all the way down to Bank Street Extension, and in addressing the drainage problems we have along that area. Those are CIP projects that will go in front of the council, but the engineering should be done by December. And if approved, we would go out to bid in January, because we want to get the best prices we can, and that's the time of the year that's ideal in which to get that done. And that work would begin sometime in the spring. Braverman expects to start construction in the fall of 21, assuming he can get through the planning process and permitting process. That's what his plan is. He would be done sometime in the spring of 22, at which time the buildings would be open. So that is the present plan that we have in front of us. Despite the information that was put in the newspaper, it talked about 9 to 10 units of workforce housing. The latest plan is about 45 units. As long as he can get the tax credits for that, that is the plan. So it's a much larger percentage of the 94 units would be that workforce housing. And there's two tiers of that, 80% and 60% of the income of the area, Grafton County income. So that would be, as long as he can achieve that, which is what he's working on right now, it'll be a much larger number, not just the 9 units that the paper talked about. So I think that's a pretty quick broad brush about that. The $1.5 million that we receive in cash for the sale should pay for all of the reconstruction of the roadway, all of the paving of the rail trail, so that will not require any taxpayer dollars to do that. That'll all be paid for, and we should have money left over after that out of the $1.5 million to get all those things done. But that remains to be seen when we get the bid prices, and we're expecting they're going to probably come under the engineer's estimate of cost due to prices being pretty low right now. Our other projects are coming way under. So there'll be a net proceed to the city after the public improvements are made in that area. That does not include the sewer line. The sewer line's about a $588,000 project that has to occur, but that had to occur anyway.
John, is there any clarity yet on streetscape or sidewalk, landscaping, lighting, that kind of thing?
Yeah, there's a plan that DPW has, a preliminary plan that they actually brought to the public. It talks about all those issues. There's sidewalks that'll be constructed there, but they don't go all the way to the end of the street. And then the entire street will not be reconstructed. It's only a certain portion of it. Once you get down to the residential homes, these single family homes, there's really no need to do any additional work down there. We're not going to do any work we don't have to do. But there are sidewalks that will be reconstructed as part of this. There's a pedestrian crossing signal that will be put in at Spencer Street where the rail trail crosses. Right now there's nothing, but the flashing beacons you see over in Hanover is what we'll have located there. There'll also be a reconfiguration of the intersection where the CCBA is located. Spencer Street will continue through. There won't be a stop sign. The stop sign will be, well, where it presently is when you come out of the CCBA on Taylor Street there. But it'll be more of a clear flow of traffic, a clear flow of through traffic once they get done that work there. It'll improve that intersection, which is kind of unclear right now. And like I say, there'll be the usual streetlight improvements we're making anyway. The city's already doing that. Where the pole is, will just get moved. That's the only thing on that one side where the building is going to be reconstructed.
I was just thinking whether we might coordinate with the Arts and Culture Council on trying to brainstorm on ideas that would help the streetscape and help the sort of the newly revived street, if you will. I don't know if, I think Bill Dunn, you're
Yeah, so Chip, Bill Dunn here, there were plans in place for the Arts and Culture Commission to become involved in the, I'll use the word loosely, the decoration or the beautification artistically of a charging station, a vehicle charging station that was going to be essentially located right there between the Grafton County Senior Center and the CCB. So it's essentially on that same corridor. There have been some developments and that is now on hold. Essentially, the Electrify America folks in their negotiations with the state have had some difficulty removing easements or rights of way that go through there for the railroad. So the city, I think Tad Montgomery has identified another site that's a little bit closer to the CCBA, almost down by where the children's playground is, and chatting about relocating that charging station to that location. However, just because of logistics, it's going to take a little bit longer. So probably not in the next 6 to 8 months anyway.
Yeah, I wouldn't be too optimistic about that charging station ever occurring. What happened was the EA had to withdraw from the lease agreement because they couldn't get the information. They couldn't get approvals from DOT or the information they needed to be able to have lines cross over that right away. And of course, there's a number of them that already do cross over that way. But basically, there hasn't been a whole lot of cooperation from DOT to allow that to move forward. So that's not going to move forward. It's not postponed. It is done. In terms of the alternate location, I think they're going to find another location someplace in this area to run their charging station. I don't think it's going to be that downtown. I know Tad's working with them to try to make that happen, but I wouldn't be too optimistic about that. The information we're getting from CCBA, it's not real clear about whether they're going to approve that or not. They seem to want something in return from the city, which has nothing to do with the city. They'd have to get whatever they're going to get from EA. And I'm just not optimistic anything's going to happen with that at that location.
Sure. If I could just stay on this theme for just a quick second, not too far away from that location, Arts and Culture Commission is working on projects within the tunnel. So when that opens up in May of 2021, there'll be opportunities in that part of the city, and then a few other locations have been identified.
So, but just want to go back to the actual 20 Spencer Street projects, the confines of that, because that's only Spencer Street itself. I don't know if there's really going to be any opportunities along the edge of the road to do it. There certainly may be opportunities along that the rail trail to do things. And there's going to be an open space between what Ken Braverman's doing and the rail trail. So I think there's some opportunities there, and now's a good time to have that discussion with Ken as his project moves forward.
Yeah, I really think that the rail trail is kind of the natural amenity magnet down there. And, if we are, we could do things to celebrate culture section of the city. And I think it could be really effective on the rail trail, particularly getting it repaved.
Right. That'll take care, because it gets muddy down there, because that's where I walk in the spring, and it gets a little rough to get through there, and it won't be an issue any longer. It'll be cleaned up and look a lot better. But I think that would be a great spot for any artwork. That's going to be a key location right there where the DPW building used to be. There's going to be a green space between the parking area and where the rail trail runs parallel to that. That's going to be a great opportunity for that space. Now might be the time to have that discussion with Ken and see if we can get him to pay for some of those improvements as part of his project.
Well, and other things like, obviously not in the winter time, but there might be opportunities to do music events or other sort of outdoor cultural stuff that's not necessarily visual arts, but other arts, performing arts.
Are there plans to have anything like picnic tables or park benches of that nature installed? Maybe lighting, uplights, or anything of that nature?
So in terms of the actual site plan for Braverman, we haven't gotten into those details yet. He has to develop that, and that has to get submitted to the planning board. So that's where you might see whatever those improvements are going to be in there. In terms of the public space, the existing greenway already has park benches, and those will probably be added as we go along, like they have been along the greenway. And pieces of art, as you can see along the greenway as well.
The plans for Spencer Street are available on the DPW website under engineering future projects, and I could share that on the screen if you'd like to see them real quick.
That'd be great.
Let me see if that'll work. Do you see something there?
Yes, very good.
Yeah.
So I think that's showing the reconstruction of the intersection with Taylor Street so that the CCBA comes out and joins Taylor Street to make that through. There is this is the DPW site over here, and the adjoining building that Braverman might also be purchasing. And one observation I have, Sean, I don't know if this has been talked about, but I see sort of the start of paving along the rail trail. When you cross right here, it narrows down to just a 5-foot area, but there's actually room to go to 8 or 9 or 10 feet. And so I'm just wondering if part of the paving project, or at least maybe get pricing on it, is expanding this 5-foot to 8 foot up to the point where it sort of intersects with the city parking lot. Just a thought while they're out there, because that would sort of make this crossing more meaningful to continue people on to the ultimate eventual connection to the Greenway.
Yeah, actually, Parks and Rec, along with planning, they have a plan, which I have not seen yet, for the trailblazing to go from where you're talking about, Cliff, here at the end of this, all the way to the rail trail. I don't have that yet. They need to get, we got roadway markings and some painting, and I don't know. They talked about different colors and blazing basically the yellow brick road to get there. I don't know. There have been different versions of what that path is going to be. So I would need to see what that looks like.
Sure.
The concern I have is, we're going to be taking a big step just to pave the section we're going to have all the way down to the Bank Street extension. And I don't know how much more we want to do with this project.
Right. That would be a small increment because there's already 5 feet of pavement, and just looking at it, it looks like you could add 3 feet on one side that would make it more bikeable. Because right now it would be, people do ride their bikes on through there, but it really becomes too narrow with just a 5 foot of pavement there. But just something to consider as plans are getting finalized. And the other thing I noticed, and hopefully somebody's picked up on this, is that this is the further out section here. And actually, I think there's actually 3 plans here. And the furthest plan was before this site was redeveloped for, I'm blanking on their name right now. Geocon. And so they're showing sidewalk work here, but I think Geocon just completely redid this whole area here so that no work would be needed there. Because there is a nice new sidewalk in front of Geocon already. And this plan happens to show work there. So just a little detail.
Any further comments?
No, I just think that to Assistant Mayor Belo's comment, statement there, when I get that plan on how because I don't know if they want bikes on that, what's considered the sidewalk right now, the area is talking about. I got to look at their plan. I know they worked on one. They went out there and walked it. I just don't have it yet.
Okay.
I need to take a look at that and see what it shows.
Right. This is the spot where you narrow down from an 8 or 10 foot wide trail to this 5 foot. And that is a good question, whether they continue to plan to use this or whether they're getting bikes to go into the road at this point. That's a good question.
This is Karen Leo Hill. I just wanted to say that I really love the idea of connecting up the Arts and Culture Commission right in and the city and having seen what we can do public for some public art in that a really promising, promising thing. So I'll look forward to that. And I think, I just support what Cliff was talking about. If we're making some investments I think should spot on the rail trail is absolutely the destination.
Karen, you're not coming through.
And so, oh well, that's okay. I put my comment in the chat.
Okay. Well, let's move on then. We've covered everything here.
Okay, so discuss next steps for the West Lebanon redevelopment. So we've got that the West Lebanon Revitalization Advisory Committee, and the mayor is taking applications right now to appoint people to that. PB has to appoint a rep, and we've got a rep too. Is that Chip that's been on that? I forget. I think Chip was assigned that, right, Chip?
I think I was going to be on a downtown.
Yeah, I know you're in the downtown one.
But I'm happy to participate in the West Leb committee.
Yeah, we've got to appoint somebody to that.
I'm happy to do that.
Mr. Chairman, you'd have to decide, take nominations and appoint someone to that.
All right. When is the next meeting of that?
There isn't one yet because it hasn't been formed yet. So we can make this an agenda item for the next meeting. You can nominate somebody, appoint somebody, and
Very good.
the planning board has a seat on that. EDC has a seat, and we have a city councilor, and the rest are residents or business owners in Ward 1.
Okay. Let me know, folks, your interest. I've got Chip's comments, and we'll clarify what you're also doing, Chip, in this other board or other downtown development committee.
But once we get 20 Spencer Street done, that's when we'll start to transition to the downtown redevelopment. And by then, we should have major improvements on the West Lebanon redevelopment.
Right. So I think what you just said was that we don't really see something happening in Lebanon right away. So maybe there isn't any activity that's going to be going on with a committee to look at this.
That's my plan, is not to do anything with the downtown area, but I mean, I'm not the ultimate decider on that, because the staff requirements to deal with 20 Spencer Street and then dealing with the West Lebanon improvements, revitalization, is going to take what I have for staff to do that. I don't have extra people to be able to do all three of these at once.
Sure. Makes sense. All right. Very good. We'll see what develops between now and next month. We'll have it solved.
All right.
Go ahead.
Any other questions about discussing next steps for West Lebanon redevelopment? From our perspective as the EDC.
Just to clarify, timing on when we expect plans back?
I haven't even contracted with VHB yet to do the streetscape work. And this committee is probably going to get, I'm guessing, won't get up and running till probably mid-October or November.
Okay.
And their job is to help guide that process with the engineering firm.
Got it.
So, I mean, we're not going to see a report from them until sometime next year, because if there's going to be CIP improvements, their job is to recommend whatever they're going to be.
All right. So let's keep on the outline here and discuss the impact of COVID-19 on the local economy. Any further developments there?
We really don't have any further developments. I mean, there's 6 more weeks of unemployment compensation that New Hampshire is going to take advantage of, but After that, nobody knows what's going to happen. There's no more stimulus plans moving forward. I don't think we're going to see anything until probably January. Depending upon what kind of change we have in Congress, depending upon who the next presidential administration is.
Let's not go there.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I just don't think it's
Right.
not a matter of whether you're for one side or the other. I just don't.
Oh,
see
I understand.
I just don't see anything happening between now until that issue is resolved.
Right. So, how are we doing? I mean, last time we spoke about the taxes and had very little problems. We had the, it looks like the big group is coming in to buy up pennies. Is that what we've heard here? Where are we at with all of this?
We know there's an interest in the Kmart Plaza, and we know who that is.
Uh-huh. Okay.
And if that works out, that'll be October of 21. If that works out.
So, where do we stand on the tax issue?
Nothing has really changed there. My
Okay.
concern is that I think the reality is setting in that we're going to be in this situation for probably another 365 days. Sometime this time next year
Yeah.
is when the best estimate will be. There'll be enough vaccine, assuming there is a vaccine, there'll be enough vaccine to inoculate a good portion of the population. So my concern is we're going to be going through at least 3/4 of next year in the same status we're in right now. And I'm very concerned about how businesses are going to be able to survive through that. Some businesses, some are doing quite well, but others, I don't know how, if this goes on that long, and I expect it's going to. For instance, like the River Valley Club, the gyms across the country are in deep trouble. And I don't know how I don't know their actual financial situation, but I don't know how they're going to continue to operate the way they are for an extended period of time.
I just got off a round table with Congresswoman Custer, and she had invited our chamber and a few others. She made mention that she sits on one of the House congressional committees dedicated to health. And she said that there are 7 companies that are working on vaccines, and they are starting human trials, but those vaccines will not be ready until first or second quarter of next year. So the distribution of any vaccine won't be before, like you said, Sean, this time next year, at least.
The concern I have is we have, right now, landlords cannot evict people for however long that remains in effect. If they can't evict people and they're not paying their rent, then are they going to pay their taxes?
That's really where I'm headed here with what's the city's position on where we're at.
I expected we were going to be in worse shape than what we were for the first half tax bill, but that didn't materialize.
Yes.
What happens to the second tax bill?
Yep.
I don't know, but I find it hard to believe that we're going to be as successful as we were the first half tax bill.
Gotcha.
And on top of that, we've got a reval going on, and that reval is going to have an effect that we haven't seen here in about 10 years, especially when it comes to commercial properties.
Yes, sir.
And their ability to actually pay that bill, because that's going to shift some of the tax burden more onto the commercial sector. And how that's going to shake out, I don't know at the end of the day.
So this is Bill Dunn. If I could just chime in here for a quick moment. I also do all of the municipal lending for Mascoma Bank, and I'll tell you that we have seen that most of the towns or municipalities in the area have not seen much of a decline at all in this first tax collection. And our concept on that is that a lot of folks are currently escrowing for taxes. So whether they have been paying their financial institution or not, if the banks receive a tax bill from the town and the borrowers are under escrow, they're compelled to pay. So then they need to figure out how they fix that deficit thereafter. So that might be part of what the buffer was this first time around. And I don't know if that will just solve generically in the future, but at the moment it's a cushion for the municipalities.
Yeah, so I to the point, I just don't know what's going to happen, and I expect we'd have a worse situation that first tax bill, and that didn't happen. So I just don't know, but I can't imagine this can continue to go on forever like this without having some dramatic impacts on our revenues. We know that our ambulance revenues are down significantly, landfill is down, and that's having an impact, but our development fees are up significantly. Building permits and all those sorts of fees are up significantly. And that's making up for some of that lost revenue on the ambulance side and landfill, and some, a slight reduction in motor vehicle revenues coming in.
Wait till dog license comes up. Everyone's getting a dog.
Yeah, right.
That'll be the new revenue stream.
Yeah. Unfortunately, it doesn't bring in that much money, but yeah. I don't know.
Well, I think you just told us quite a bit in the sense of the reval and changing of the. There must be some pressure that's going to come just simply from the escalation in property prices across the board, not just commercial, but also residential.
Right, but residential is going up by 10 to 15% on average. In some cases, we have commercial going up by 50%.
Yep.
So when you think about that, if you want a piece of commercial property and your tax bill doubles,
yes,
that's going to have.
I've thought about it, believe me.
Yeah, that's going to have a pretty dramatic impact.
Right.
Especially if you're a business that's already struggling and you're going to pay more of the tax burden going forward.
Well,
That's going to be
a lot of this tax gets, pushed through to the tenants. So what you don't want the city to do is scare off tenants saying, well, Lebanon's too expensive to operate in. That doesn't really solve the problem either.
But it's a facet of our tax system. I mean, that's how it works here, is that in New Hampshire it's based upon sales.
Yep.
If gas stations are selling for double what they normally do, and convenience stores what they normally do, then their value increases. And if houses go up by 10%, that means those commercial properties are going to take more of the piece of the tax pie that they're going to be responsible for. I mean, the tax rate's going to go down, but that doesn't really mean anything. The amount of taxes that people pay, for the most part, is going to be the same or more, especially if you're one of those businesses that fit within that other category. And I think that's going to be problematic moving forward. I expect a lot of abatement requests, and it's going to have its impact.
Okay, so let's have some good news now. Let's go to the future agenda items, unless somebody has some other things to discuss. This would be a good point to put them in there. What about ideas coming down the road? Anybody want to speak to those? Well, I'm not hearing much.
Well, I think one of the things we need to start thinking and looking at is how our economy is going to change. It will not be the same prior to COVID-19. So what does that mean? Does that mean that businesses are going to use less office space because they're going to be more people be operating at home? Or what is that going to mean? What's that future look like? And what sort of impact is that going to have in our downtown core area? We already have vacant office space. How much more are we going to have? What sort of an impact is that going to be? What's the change going to be? How do we pivot? How do we survive? The fear I always have, and every city manager has the same fear, is that if you look at communities that had very strong economies, the cities of Franklin, for instance, and pick anyone across this country, they were based on certain businesses and certain commercial activity, and that changes rapidly, and they're not diversified enough. That can have a very profound effect on their economies, and a lasting effect that sometimes is irrevocable. So you folks work in the private sector. What are you seeing? What does it look like? What do we need to be thinking about? How do we expect our economy is going to change, and how do we prepare ourselves to deal with that? And you may not have the answer to that right now, but you folks might be better suited to help us go there than I am working in the public sector.
Well, let me speak up here to start with, at least. I keep reading a lot about what's happening with the people coming back to work, and it's sort of interesting what's going on. There certainly are jobs that are working just fine and are not necessarily need to have the type of interaction that makes an office work. Most of the executives that run these offices and so forth feel that the problem is coming, but when they bring in new people, that they can't get the culture right, get the working right. And it's the young people that have new in their jobs that haven't gone through this so much at this point, where life gets a little bit narrower as you move away from college and into the workforce. And so it's not apparent where they are. They can certainly do the work at home, and it's been working quite well for the individual. So there is a mixed message out there that is pretty clear to me that we don't have any answers yet as to where this is going. In our building, we're back to about 40% of the people are back at work. And these are mostly people who are involved in engineering and call places, making telephone calls and turning out products. They're not the type of thing that one can do all on their own. So we see it only halfway there at this point. It certainly is gaining. We had one group of about 30 people come pretty much back full time. That was mandatory. And so things are starting to switch, but it's not clear where it's going to head. That's what we see on Water Street.
Yeah, I would say that, there's, I think that there's a lot of organizations thinking about who needs to be in an office and who doesn't. There's a lot of thinking going on. I think my experience is that it's very hard to run an organization completely remotely. And just as this Microsoft Teams call is productive, it's not quite as productive as when you're all in the room together. And I think in terms of, companies and organizations thinking about management and culture, it's going to be hard to be everybody remote long term. And so I think my bet, and I don't know this, but my bet is that there'll be people shifting around, taking less space. Some people be spreading out, taking more space. But in a year or two, I would be surprised if it was much different than where it is. People naturally like to be together and are more productive together. So we'll see.
This is Bill Dunn. I'll just add a layer to that as well. As more and more people are working from home, the desire to then go out after work increases. The need for socialization is there, right? So instead of people socializing around the water cooler during their 8-hour, 9-hour day and then going home, it's going to be the opposite. So to the extent that an empty storefront could be a social area at some point in time, I think it's just a mix, and that will ebb and flow until people get comfortable.
The businesses that I've talked to recently, those that are all working remote, have all mentioned a desire to try to bring people back to the office, or they're starting to do some sort of like a rotation where part of the staff comes into the office and part remains remote. One of the top issues right now that I'm hearing is the childcare situation is making it very, very difficult. It's just when some schools are fully remote, some are doing a hybrid model, it's just making it really difficult for employers to manage their employees and who can do what. There's having to be a lot of flexibility.
Yeah, one of the things that we're seeing at Dartmouth is we're having to rethink how we're doing parking. We used to sell all of our passes were by month, and now we're going to roll out in January daily parking rates. And so either you can do monthly or you can do daily, because many people are going to only come in maybe 1 or 2 days a week. And so that's probably the future of parking is on campus is just daily rates. So that's an example of just an adaptation that we've done.
Are you looking at changing any of your office space or eliminating any of it, or at the college?
Yeah, we are. We're looking at utilizing space more efficiently, particularly if you have people that are only going to come into work 2 days a week or 1 day a week. You don't need the office space that you used to, because you can use common space. And so we are looking at shuffling. So there's some jobs that just don't need to be on campus anymore. This has been a great experiment for some departments to just stay at home, particularly like IT.
Yeah, we've got some even here in the city that they're never going to come back to City Hall. There's just no need to, and we're able to function effectively. Because we were busting at the seams at City Hall, but I don't see us moving any more people out of City Hall and renting any more space. Because I see people operating remotely, and we've been able to successfully do that, and it seems to work pretty well. And occasionally, like you said, we'll have a meeting where people will come in, but that's pretty rare. I suspect there'll be more of that once COVID-19's gone, but there won't be that much of it because we've been able to adapt to this new environment. And we've gone pretty much paperless. I mean, my desk doesn't have any paper on it anymore. I don't even need to be here. That's what I'm worried about. What kind of impact is that going to have? But as Bill had said, does that mean that when people are at home doing their work, they want to meet afterwards? Is there going to be more need for social places like Salt Hill and Three Tomatoes and Louie Louie's? I don't know.
Well, those businesses are going to be affected by not having as many people working downtown because that's their lunch crowd. So hopefully there will be a need for people to get out and go get dinner, because otherwise those businesses will be severely affected.
I think that's going to be a major job for us is plotting this future that we have ahead of us. I suspect the world will continue to be a different place afterwards, and how it evolves further, we've got to make sure that we're on top of that. And we plan for that. I'd be interested to see what Andy Key has to say. We're all old people. He's a younger person, and they have a different vantage point on things. Andy, any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think I agree with what was it Tracy just said about the lunch crowd and just people are not. Most of all my friends now are working remotely, and aside from a couple, I don't think a lot of them are going to be going back to offices anytime soon, even after this pandemic's over, just because corporations are going to realize that they've saved a ton of money by just even subletting a room out of these people's apartments to call it a home office and give them an extra stipend for their troubles to have a computer at their house. And they're going to realize they're going to save money, and then in the end they're not going to be renting big office spaces. And if that then turns into like what you were saying, Sean, about increasing commercial tax, I think that's probably again going to hurt the commercial, and it is going to drive people away. That I get, it's a tax has to go up, but to an extent you're just going to tax people out. And especially if there's going to be less office spaces and higher taxes, then I don't know. It's a real it's a tricky situation. there's not a right answer, and there's not a. It's difficult.
This might be a good item to put on as a future agenda item that we talk about, and people in their different sectors might be able to comment on this committee, what things are looking like, and we can start thinking about this, because I think we need to. We need to look further into the future than just, I mean, we've been living, as you all know, from week to week, month to month, as to what's going to happen next, when's the next shoe going to drop, but we need to be looking a little bit further ahead, I think, in terms of our future, like we used to do prior to COVID-19. If that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes great sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think it's we really need some diversity to look at some of this stuff, and some facts to back it up. There's clearly different areas where people look at these problems from a different perspective. I was just thinking about the bank in particular, as to how many people could work away from the bank. Bill, I mean, a lot of that is information that gets passed between people. It isn't as easily done over Zoom or through emails, I would think.
Here's just a quick snapshot there. About 98% of the bank was on site. The concept of my bank working remote didn't exist.
That's right.
Yet we had a CFO who drove from Bow to White River Junction every day for 23 years because the concept of working remote did not exist. And within a matter of 3 weeks, we deployed hundreds of people, and now we're 65% remote. That was a foreign concept to us. So it is no longer a foreign concept. The bank has developed when this is over, the bank has developed a voluntary work remote program for people who have enjoyed their time at home or outside of the office. That is a brand new concept for us. We've actually hired people for the first time as new employees with the concept of working remote. They don't even have to live in the state. It's definitely introducing changes, and I think those changes will affect some of the local businesses. I think one of the things this commission needs to do, not knowing when a vaccine is going to come out, not knowing exactly when people are going to feel safe, we have to look at how we solve the things that we do know. We know it's about to get colder, right? So the restaurants that have done pretty well by serving outside, when are those eaters going to start to say, you know what, a sandwich at home makes more sense today because the weather's not cooperative? So we'll have to figure out ways that we might be able to aid local businesses on the things that we do know are happening.
So just one thing on that, we're looking at changing our employment model because we can hire people. They don't have to live within the city or even driving distance. There are people that can perform city functions that could be 2 states away now. And we're seriously looking at opening up and broadening our horizon when it comes to hiring city employees. And obviously, if you're a DPW worker, police officer, firefighter, you've got to be able to come here. But other positions, that may not be a planner does not physically need to be in the city any longer to be able to do their function, perform their function. So those are things that we're looking at. So I've got a couple of items. I know we're running out of time here. So for future items, I've got West Lebanon Revitalization Committee appointment. I've got the path to the tunnel from the Northern Rail Trail. I should be able to get you something by then, and I'm sure that the Arts and Culture Commission is going to want to see that as well. So I'll make sure that gets distributed so everybody has that. And I got the future economy of the city and what the workplace looks like as an agenda item to talk about next at the next meeting. Anything else for future agenda items you want me to put on? If there are, obviously get them to me before the next meeting. And if not, at least we have those 3 items to work with.
Okay. I don't hear any. Anyone got some other ideas?
And I guess let me just ask this question. Is there a better way to elicit the information of what the future workplace looks like? Who else could we contact? Who is better to help us on this journey to figure that issue out?
I'd like to hear somebody from the software industry that is putting together that type of work so that we could find out what their networking is required. They certainly can work from home. They only need a computer, I think. I don't know.
Well, do we do a survey of our businesses and ask a series of questions and find out what the responses are in terms of what their plans are? How do we get to this information we want to find out?
Good question.
I honestly don't think that they know yet at this point, Sean. I think it would be too early. I think if we do some sort of survey, it's going to have to be first quarter of next year, because I think everyone's still holding their breath a little bit as to, how this year is going to finish. I really don't think our businesses know what their plans are definitively.
Okay.
That's kind of what I'm hearing.
But that would give us time to put one together anyway, though, and have it ready for sometime towards the end of the first quarter.
Right.
Send out. So I'm going to add that as an item. Business survey.
What about we're still open here, and I guess we don't have time today. In fact, that Dan Nash, you have a thought on the underground utilities. That was item number 4. Oh, that was last time. It was going to come up this time.
I'll have it for next time. I'll put some thoughts together and get those to Sean.
All right. So underground utilities for the next meeting as well.
Right.
Okay. Got it.
All right. Could I have a motion for adjournment unless there's other business?
Dan Nash, so moved.
Second.
Chip Brown seconds.
All right. Call for a vote. And go ahead, Chip. I'm looking at you.
Yes.
Clifton votes yes.
Bill Dunn votes yes.
Dan votes yes.
Dave Newlove votes yes.
Steve Whitman votes yes.
Andy Key.
Andy Key votes yes.
Okay. I think you're adjourned.
Thank you very
Yeah.
much.
Enjoy.
So
Bye, all.
All right. Enjoy the evening. Thank you. Bye-bye.